Yes. Namaskar and good morning to all. We'll start today's national consultation. So, esteemed delegates, panel members, and all the participants who have joined with us in person and as well as virtually. So, I take this opportunity to welcome each one of you to the 2-day national consultation on potential of Forest Rights Act in the context of tribal development, implementation gaps and way forward. This consultation is organized by SCSTRTL, STNS Development Department of Orissa, in collaboration with UNDP and with the support from Ministry of Tribal Affairs, Government of India. The consultation aims to discuss the status of implementation of Forest Rights Act, the good practices adopted by the states, implementation gaps, and the way forward. So I would like to welcome the esteemed dignitaries for the inaugural session and request for presentation of bouquets to our guests. So our Chief Guest, Madam Ranjana Chopra, Principal Secretary, STNSC Development Department, Government of Orissa. Our guest of honor, Dr. Moni Raju, Deputy Advisor, NITI Aayog, Government of India. Professor A.P. Ultan, sir, Director, STSC, and now may I request our Director, Professor A.P. Ultan, kindly thank for the welcome.
Now I will request the Secretary, Principal Secretary, and Dr. Moni Raju, our guest of honor, to kindly light the lamp for the ceremony at the beginning of the event. To one and all, our esteemed dignitaries on the dais, dignitaries of the dais, those virtually attending this workshop and physically attending this workshop as well. As is already been told, this 2-day workshop on consultation, which is a consultative workshop on potential of Forest Rights Act in the context of tribal development. Is organized by SCST Research and Training Institute in collaboration with UNDP, with the support of Ministry of Tribal Affairs. In fact, in 2006, if you remember, the Forest Rights Act promulgated. This is a epochmaking act, very historic act to undo the historical injustice made to the tribals. We have now passed through the journey of 16 years. This consultative workshop has drawn experts from about 15 states of the country. Civil society organizations, academicians, the Guru friends, and the cutting edge officials who are involved in the implementation of forest rights. The objective is to see how far this Forest Right Act has been implemented, where we stand, where are the good practices, and where are the gaps at the implementation level. So that this sharing WhatsApp will give us a lot of input to prepare a roadmap which we can submit to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs and also circulate it amongst the state governments, which can be used as important input for building strategies state-wise to take Forest Rights Act forward. Having said that, this I must make a mention that 15 states have been invited here, and all our 27 TRIs are also accessing this workshop for these 2 days. At the end of the workshop, we can hold back and we'll be submitting the ministry, as I have said. I take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Madam Ranjana Chopra, Principal Secretary, ST and SC Development Department of Government of Odisha, who has taken FRA implementation on a mission mode in the state. The state soon is going to come up with, under her leadership, Mission FRA 2024 to see that forest rights implementation takes place on a saturation mode. I welcome you, madam. I take this opportunity to welcome our old friend, Dr. Muni Raju, who is Deputy Advisor, Niti Ayog. He is our esteemed guest of honor today. He looks after the tribal development aspect in the Niti Ayog, and he is also overseeing the sustainable development goal, how it is happening and how it can be taken forward in Niti Ayog. We welcome you, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome in our midst our Director SD Sunam Guha, who looks after the implementation of FRA and who monitors FRA on a very regular basis with the field functions. We welcome you, madam. I also take this opportunity. I won't take names, but I can certainly tell you we have in our midst many stalwarts, anthropologists and non-anthropologists who are working in the field of FRA with proven track record. In these 2 days, you will be listening to them many good practices and many aspects they will identify which has to be given thrust if we want to see implementation of FRA in the true spirit. I take this opportunity to welcome one and all resource persons who are present here, panelists who are present here, the chairpersons who are present here, and also present in virtual mode to this workshop. And lastly, I would speak about our keynote speaker who is attending this workshop virtually from Delhi. He is Dr. N.C. Saxena. I think everybody knows Dr. N.C. Saxena. He has been responsible in formulation of almost all the tribal friendly acts that you find right from 1996 to 2013. It is PESA Act, Forest Rights Act, be it LARR Act 2013. He has a very, very big role to play. We welcome you, sir, and I think all the esteemed participants will expect you to give you a keynote address. We have in our midst 2 very important personalities whom I would also like to welcome. Dennis, Deputy Resident Representative UDP, is with us virtually. I welcome you, Dennis, to this workshop. I also take this opportunity to welcome Director Minister of Tribal Affairs, Government of India, who Manoj Bapna ji, who looks after FRA on behalf of Ministry of Tribal Affairs. He will be speaking to you. We welcome you, sir. And he will be speaking to you today in the inaugural address as to how Ministry of Tribal Affairs have come up with a vision 2014 for 2040, where how they have placed FRA in the agenda and what are the new initiatives they are planning to take up. He will be speaking to you. We welcome you, sir. At the end, I again welcome one and all to this all important, two-day WhatsApp on FRA, because this WhatsApp is expected to come up with a set of recommendations based on the empirical findings that our experts will be listing before the participants here. I again thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now I will request Madam Ranira Chopra, our Principal Secretary, to kindly share the background and setting the context to the consultation.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, addressing this house, I see that there are a lot of experts, that there are people who have been dedicating their entire lives to the cause of forest rights and tribal development. So it's very humbling to be here among such stalwarts. I especially like to acknowledge and Dr. N.C. Saxena. In fact, when I started my career as a civil servant, I was the director of the academy. And at that point of time, I remember that his stature was such that we were even scared of crossing the director's office for the fear of bumping into him. So, sir, it is indeed my honor and privilege to be in the same house as you are. And I'm really delighted that you are able to take time for this workshop. This workshop has been curated by SCSC RTI with a lot of love and commitment to the tribal cause. And I'm sure that with your presence and the presence of all of the dignitaries who are here, the domain experts, activists, civil servants, members of the TRIs, and all other members who are present today, it is going to be a very fruitful workshop. The idea behind the workshops like this and also building communication platforms like this is to keep the issue of I represent a state where belongs to tribal community. We actually have 10% of the tribal population of the entire country, and we also have the largest populations of the primitive tribal groups or the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, as they are being categorized now. And we recognize the fact that whatever socio-economic development processes the government may come up with, the most fundamental thing would remain the entitlement of the land. Unless and until they have an access, they have the right over what their entitlement is as far as the land resources is concerned. We cannot imagine an ecosystem and come to the same level of parameters as that of an average general population. So I'm not even being very aspirational. Even level of an average index. Paramount for us to understand that nothing can be done unless and until the tribals have an access to their land. So why land is important, why forest is important, I think that also not emphasized it enough. But this is my personal opinion that as far as the tribal communities is concerned, we cannot look at land in isolation. So land for them, forest for them is an integral part of their culture, of their heritage, of their life processes, and also of their livelihood. So you can't dissociate a tribal household in any capacity, in any aspect of life from forest. And unless and until the tribal household has a, a land or ownership of the habitat or the land that he or the household is inhabiting, this is like the Maslow's hierarchy. You can't think of any other higher order of gratification unless and until this basic need is met as far as tribal households are concerned. So, having recognized that fact, it is also, I'm very proud to report to the House that Orissa has been making some strides in this respect. We sometimes around 2009, 2010, Orissa Commission Mode had collected the claims for the FRA, and we had about 6.4 lakh claims have been received by the state government. And out of this 6.4 lakh claims, about 4.5 lakh claims have been settled and the FRA Patas distributed. This covers about 6.6 lakh hectares of forest land, which by itself is a very large area. But this does not complete the narrative. Giving the patta is important, and in fact, in many cases, what we have seen is that after the FRA patta is acquired by the household, that in fact is the only official document that the tribal family has. Now, in the land of, in the era of Aadhaar, the things are changed. So, Aadhaar probably or an NFSA ration card probably is something that we are trying to reach out to, and the tribal households would have. But in 2009-10, or when we started this journey, then FRA Patta would be the only official document. FRA Patta in many cases would be the only mark of identification for a tribal household. So it was a very unique and very revolutionary step at that point of time. But as I was saying, this does not complete the narrative, it does not complete the story, because giving the FRA Patta by itself is not enough. Unless and until we are able to identify the patch of land by way of demarcation by the revenue authorities, who are the legitimate authorities to recognize any kind of right over the land, and unless and until we have given the possession of that land to the tribal family. So otherwise, FRA Patta is just a scrap of paper. It doesn't have any value. But once we do the demarcation and the possession is completed, then we can say that we have closed the loop and the entitlement of that FRA family or that FRA beneficiary has finished. But now we come to the next stage of this journey where we see that fine, the FRA land has been identified, the ownership as should have been given, recognized is with the family. Now, what is the next step? The next step is to make sure that we are able to dovetail the benefits of different government schemes we have taken government scheme because of lack of land, whether it was rural housing or some benefit under MGNREGS or some water connection, any other benefit which this tribal household could not access because they had no entitlement over land, now should also come by the way of to this particular family. So note that also in Orissa, out of this 4.5 lakh FRA Patta holders, the rough estimation that we are having says that we are being able to reach out to about 3.5 lakh families. I am saying it's an estimation because it's quite possible that in many cases more than one benefit has gone to the same family, which at this point of time we are unable to segregate. Now, the next important milestone in this journey in our state has been the digitization of the records. And for that, as Mr. Dennis Curry is connected with us today, I'll like to express my gratitude to UNDP, who have been able to help us. For the last 2 years, we've been assisted by UNDP, and we have been able to create a portal whereby not only would the old records be digitized, but all the future records. We are taking our tribal brothers and sisters along with us in this journey of progress and development and ensuring that they enter the digital era Now, from henceforth, our attempt is that all the PATA applications are online. They are able to access the common service centers wherever there is no connectivity, and our local staff and grassroots officials would be helping them in this process. So this portal has been created. The portal is quite robust. I must say that we have had various rounds of discussion and iterative dialogues. With the result, the portal is a strong portal. Our NGO partners like Pradhan, who have been working with us again with some very generous funding organizations like Omida and Network, have been able to add value to this process. And after having added value to this process, we are finding that the whole process of demarcation of land, reaching up to the last citizen, that is being facilitated through the help of our NGO partners who are now involved with our process. In fact, yesterday we were having a discussion that now I think Odisha has reached a level. I was having a discussion with a university official who had met me yesterday in my office. I'm sorry, your name is Shrikama. So we were actually thinking that Odisha is now mature at a stage where it has acquired maturity to set up a dedicated PMU only for forest rights act, because that will help us to actually make a very strong database. Because we not only want to do justice to our tribal communities, but we also want to make sure that we are creating a digital footprint so that this ownership of land is not lost in the coming future. So this is permanent. So, but that is a different conversation. So we will be having it at a different time. But that is now a felt need of the state. And it is only on the shoulders of all these efforts, good work done by my officers at the district and at the state level, that we are confident enough to launch a mission 2024 for Forest Rights Act, where we are committing ourselves to saturate the state of Orissa by granting all kinds of Forest Rights Act, whether it is individual, community, habitat, ownership, which is long due. So this program, we have made the scheme. The scheme is under scrutiny by the Finance and the Planning and Convergence Department. But I think soon we should be able to launch it, and by 2024 we should be able to saturate we should actually be able to achieve the mandate given to the state governments under the FRA Act. So the journey which started in 2006 hopefully should conclude on a happy note by 2024. So this is where we stand today, and I would once again like to thank all of you who have been who are a part of this workshop, who have committed their time to this particular course, and who will be now helping us preparing the roadmap. And we will be also, once we have the scheme ready, we'll be running it past many of you, so that you can also vet it and give your expert advice on the particular scheme. And I think I'll not be doing justice to my presence here in case I once again not urge all the partners who are here that please continue supporting Government of Orissa and the Tribal Welfare Department towards this cause. Your partnership means a lot to us. It is not a question of money. It is a question of the expertise that you bring on table. It is a question of the technical knowledge and the network that you bring to table that we consider to be very valuable. And once again, I would like to thank all of you, especially Dr. N.C. Saxena, sir. We are very, very grateful to you for your presence today. And I am particularly delighted to see you here. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, madam, for such a motivational address and so articulately setting the tone to the consultation. Odisha has always been a leading state in the implementation of the FRA, and under your leadership, we are 100% sure that the Mission Forest Rights, which is going to be launched, we will be definitely achieving the mandate. Now, may I request Sri Manoj Bapna, sir, the Director of Forest FRA Division, Ministry of Tribal Affairs, who has joined virtually with us to deliver his presentation on the key initiatives taken up by Ministry of Tribal Affairs for the effective implementation of FRA.
Good morning, everyone. Senior dignitaries sitting on the dais, joined in the virtual mode, my friends and colleagues. Thank you. First of all, thank you to the organizing team to give me an opportunity to speak on the key initiatives of Ministry of Tribal Affairs on implementation of FRA. I am Manoj Bapna, Director from Ministry of Tribal Affairs. As you are well aware, to undo the historical injustice, the Parliament has enacted the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Recognition of Forest Right Act 2006, we call FRA in short. The aim of the act to recognize and vest the forest rights and occupation in the forest land in respect of forest dwelling scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers residing in such forest for generation but whose rights and could not be protected. The theme and the preamble is very, very generous and very it is our duty to ensure that we reach up to the finality of this act aim. The role of the ministry has already been defined in section 11. We are the nodal agency for implementation of the act, issue guidelines, directions and clarification to the query raised by the state governments, issuing the advisories, holding regular review meetings on implementation of FRA, providing policy inputs to ensure other laws and policy harmonizing with FRA, and also attending legal consents when it arises. One of the important instrument for measuring, or we can say how to know about the implementation of FRA, and a monthly progress report has been devised. This monthly progress report has been compiled in the ministry after getting the information from different states and their UTs. And we compile this, upload on the dashboard, performance dashboard and website of the ministry. We share with the PMO, Niti Aayog and other offices, informing about the status of the implementation of FRA. Our Honorable Minister of Tribal Affairs monitors this performance dashboard to identify the gaps and challenges and gives the directions and directives for further course of action to resolve the issues. Periodical regional consultation and all-day review meeting with the states and UTs. Also, field visit organized to review progress on implementation of FRA. When we talk about the initiative of the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, one of the amendment was undertaken in the rules in September 2012. There are many salient features in that amendment. I just point some. Disposal of MFP and transit permit to be issued by Gram Sabha only has been introduced in that. Quorum was been revised from 2/3 to half of GS meeting. And mandatory women participation has also been introduced during this amendment. Various literature development action has been taken by the ministry, issuing implementation, as I already brought out, guidelines, clarification, advisories by Government of India from time to time, conceptualize and developing training modules for government officials, community leaders, community members, and other stakeholders, and developing training modules for scheduled tribes public representatives, and having the awareness campaigns among all these people. These are the various literature with the help of the UNDP BOTA has devised, and these are for training purposes, and copies are available on the ministry's website, www.tribal.gov.in. These are in bilanguage, Hindi and English. In this course, there are development on e-resources and e-trainings. A self-learning module on FRA Act 2006 also been developed, allow access to the features, provisions, salient features, and procedure of the Act. We had physical meeting with the PRI's members. In fact, during February 2020, we started with the Bhubaneswar, Odisha only, but thereafter, because of the COVID, we could not continue. But it happened with the virtual mode. And during the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration also, a series of training sessions have been done with government officials and PRI members with the help of IIPA. These are the self-learning module on FRA, which are very interactive and easy to understand. Now, one of the biggest challenge in effective implementation of the FRA was the coordination at the ground level. There has been a consensus between the Forest Department and Tribal Welfare Department. The issue was identified and there had been a meeting between the Union Ministers of Ministry of Tribal Affairs and Environment Clearance and Climate Change. And this meeting held on 10th of August 2020. And thereafter, followed by meeting of two secretaries of both the ministries on 10 September 2020 to discuss about the modalities and common areas of concern and action plan for coming out to effective implementation of the FRA. And after deliberate discussions and regular meetings on 6 July 2020, almost a year over, a joint communication has been signed by both the secretaries in presence of union ministers and issued to all states and UT. There are various salient features of this joint communication. There are some. Forest Department needs to provide a high level of support to enable expeditious implementation of Act for recognition and vesting of forest rights. I want to add here, as ma'am has already brought out, recognition of right and giving the bata is one issue, but after recognition of right, how to further go about and get their rights and coming with the schemes and awareness of the MOTA and other ministry, that was also a big challenge. So this joint communication is also one of the feature in that. Data highlights issues of codependence of forest and the local livelihood, the need of synergy between the ground department for effective implementation of FRA. A point also been brought out, role of Rule 418 committee and necessary support from the Forest Department in execution of its duties and function. This is one of the biggest challenges that has also been addressed in this letter. Forest Department shall contribute in capacity building of forest right holders to improve livelihood through processing and marketing of non-timber forest produce in convergence with MOTA schemes. That is also one of the salient feature of that joint communication. As I already said, this joint communication was signed on 6 July 2021 in presence of Honorable Minister of both the ministries. As I mentioned about the MPR, there is a performance board, dashboard of the ministry where these MPRs being uploaded, and these are the features of the dashboard that as on 31st March, the complete how many have been filed, individual forest rights, community forest rights, how many claims have been settled, title distributed, how much of forest land, extent of forest land corresponding to the titles distributed, also been shown in this slide, which is there in the dashboard, and it is in the descending order of claims received, claims settled, and extent of land, and overall how many number of titles have been disposed of. This has all been shown in the performance dashboard. This is a glimpse of current status of the implementation of FRA, how many claims have been received. As on date, total around 44.29 lakhs claims have been received at different states, and 22.34 lakhs claims have been distributed. And extent of land is nearly around 159.13 acres of land. A total of 38,92,431, nearly around 87.88 lakhs claims have been disposed of. This is the position of the status of the claims as on 31st March 2022, showing the different position of different states and UTs. Recently, Ladakh has also joined Andaman Nicobar, communicated the position of FRA. In fact, they are in the process of composition of SDLC and DLC. So their claims have not been shown as claims submitted, but hopefully very soon we will be getting some figures over there. And here I request all the states and UT joining in this August gathering that the vision of 2040 is quite long. We should make sure that by 2030, we should be able to settle down all the claims of these forest tribes and forest OTFDs. And before concluding, I convey my sincere thanks to the organizing committee for having this 2 days session and wishing them great success on behalf of MOTA, and it should come out to be a great success and way forward how to go about further in near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, before we move on, actually, I would like to mention here that since our assembly session is going on, so Principal Secretary Madam has to leave early. So, but before she leaves, I would request Madam to kindly felicitate our guest of honor, Dr. Muni Raju, Deputy Advisor, Niti Aayog, and present the memento to him. And I would also request our director, sir, to kindly felicitate ma'am also before she leaves. Ma'am, for you also, ma'am. Okay, sure. Moving on, now I would request Sri Dennis Curry, Deputy Resident Representative UNDP India, who has also joined us virtually, to kindly deliver his inaugural address. Sri Dennis Curry.
Good morning, all, and I hope you can hear me okay. I think the audio is working again. So good morning. Let me just say first good morning and thanks to Dr. A.B. Ota, Director and Special Secretary of the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Research and Training Institute in Orissa. Sri Pradeep Kumar, Dr. Muni Raju, Deputy Advisor, Niti Aayog, and Dr. N.C. Saxena, former member of the Planning Commission and the Chair of the National Committee, constituted by the Minister of Tribal Affairs on the FRA. Sri Manoj Bapna, Director on FRA for Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Ms. Poonam Guha, Director of Scheduled Tribe and Scheduled Caste Development Department, Government of Orissa, and all the respective dignitaries that have joined us here today. Thank you for inviting me to the consultation on the recognition of forest rights, especially for tribal communities and the role of Indigenous communities in governing their resources. And this is an issue on which UNDP has worked very, very closely and intensively. It's a real pleasure to join you, and my apologies for not being able to do so in person due to commitments that kept me in Delhi. But thankfully the technology has allowed me to do so online, and it's a real pleasure and privilege to be here with you today. So around 300 million poor people of India, especially tribal communities, depend on the forest for subsistence and livelihoods. And in parallel, according to an OECD study, most forest dwellers depend on forests for up to 50% of their food requirements. The enactment of the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Act in 2006, the Forest Rights Act, has been rightly hailed as a milestone in the history of empowerment of tribal and forest dwelling populations in this country. The Act has immense potential for ensuring livelihood, security, and poverty alleviation through sustainable and community-based management of forests, contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. The right to manage and govern forest resources and ownership rights over minor forest produce goes a long way to ensure food and nutrition security and to strengthen the resilience of sustainable livelihood production systems. At the global level, then, it's also worth noting that the special report on climate change and land by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, in 2019, that report recommended that respecting and authorizing Indigenous and communal tenure can lead to improved management of forests, including for carbon storage. And the same report also lists the recognition of forest rights as a policy instrument that supports climate change. So we very much see these agendas connected. In this context, then, the Forest Rights Act can be a global model for tenurial security and reconciling conservation with livelihoods, especially in the context of climate change mitigation, a significant step forward in the realization of the SDGs. The Government of India has accorded high priority, as we can hear from the speakers already this morning, a high priority to the implementation of the FRA. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs has taken several initiatives to organize trainings, issue guidelines and clarifications, and also conducts regular review and consultations with the states to expedite the Act's implementations. UNDP is a proud partner of the Ministry of Tribal Affairs going back to 2012, I believe. The ministry has been spearheading FRA implementation across the country. Over the years, the partnership has further consolidated to improve tribal education, livelihoods, preservation of culture and traditions of tribal communities, and empowering the state departments to deliver on the ground. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs and UNDP's partnership has paved the way for many other states to follow this model, where we have seen state governments have sought and worked with UNDP for technical assistance to build the capacities of state departments to strengthen the implementation of the tribal development work. And the Ministry of Tribal Affairs has also taken significant initiatives in data management, and digital technology has been adopted in partnership with UNDP for outcome-based planning and monitoring impacts on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, it's also befitting that this consultation is happening in Orissa. As we've heard, the state government of Orissa is one of the leading states in implementing the FRA and has taken significant steps in recognizing the rights enshrined under the FRA. Today's meeting is an excellent platform for all of us to share experiences and ideas and to create synergy through partnerships and convergence of our efforts. So before I conclude, I just wanted to share, based on our experience in UNDP, a couple of points for consideration and discussion. But firstly, while states have made significant achievements in recognizing rights over individual land, there is much potential in identifying and realizing community forest rights, essential for life, livelihood, and conservation of the forests. Secondly, community participation in the forest governance process can ensure that the forests and rich biodiversity that India is endowed with are protected and conserved. And finally, to achieve what the historic legislation lays down, the ambition of that act, it's important that the systems and institutions are robust and that implementing bodies are well capacitated. A system of monitoring is essential to take the recognition of the forest rights into mission mode. And as mentioned by Ms. Chopra in her opening remarks, we are very proud at UNDP for the work we have done with the Ministry of Tribal Affairs and the government of Orissa in developing the web-based portal for effective implementation and monitoring of the FRA for the state. So let me conclude by taking this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Ota and his team for bringing experts together on this issue to work towards the realization of rights and entitlements of the tribal communities in India. And I wish you all a fruitful and productive discussion ahead. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would request Dr. NC Saxena, sir, former member Planning Commission, Sir has also joined virtually with us. I would request sir to kindly deliver the keynote address on significance of FRA in the context of forest and tribal living.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope I'm audible. Um, well, I would like to make in brief just 3 points. First of all, we must admit that the progress of FRA, especially dismal, it is very disappointing because after almost 15 years, more than 15 years, we have done only about 4 of our forest area has been brought under CFR. And this progress will continue to be dismal unless we make some radical changes in our strategy. We must recognize that tribals have suffered not only because they are isolated or living in areas which are not very fertile, but also because of government policies rather than helping tribals have harmed them. And I'll give some examples on that. Number 1 point is dismal, and we need to really look at the overall strategy that we follow. The second point I would say is that we must shift from just implementation to advocacy. We must find out why progress is so poor, who is responsible for this, and what needs to be done. We need more studies, and these studies need to be have to be circulated widely, discussed, and be available on website. And the third point I would say is that in addition to just implementing a CFR or IFR, we need to really focus on the livelihood needs of tribals. And that depends on minor forest products. How to improve, how to increase the overall production of minor forest products, how to improve access of Adivasis to these minor, to help them in marketing. These are the 3 issues on which we need to shift in addition to just implementing IFR and CFR. Now let us look at the overall progress. As I said, that only 4.6 million hectares of forest area has been brought under CFR, which comes to only 6% of our forest area. Now, although we have not specified how much is the community, that definition is given wherever people have access, that is community forest resource, say that it would be 71 million hectares, at least 46 to 50 million hectares would be such for tribals have access, or they have been traditionally collecting minor forest products. So therefore, even of CFR, of community forest resource, you find that only about 6 to 8% of that area has been brought under a CFR. When you look at the interstate progress, it's very interesting that Gujarat claims that they have brought more than 35% of their forest area under CFR. Maharashtra says about 22%. It is very low in Karnataka, only 0.4%, Jharkhand only 1.8%, and Odisha only 2.7%. So therefore, interstate differences need to be studied, and we need to find out whether the figures given in Gujarat and Maharashtra, which are very, very high, are there really any improvement in tribals' access to minor forest products? Have their livelihoods improved? Have their control over forest area improved? All this we do not know. We only have these figures. Also, as I said, if you look at the overall situation, one finds that tribals have suffered because of government policies. Look at the land records. Land records are in a bad shape. In Odisha, I wrote this in the midterm review, the 9th five-year plan, when I was Secretary Planning Commission, Government of Odisha Cashew Development Corporation over so-called wastelands. These lands were as government lands, but is actually being cultivated by tribals. So therefore, the idea was to bring them under cashew, which will, sort of do soil binding. But the reverse happened. Tribals shifted to uplands, and more soil erosion started taking place. So therefore, tribal land was being used by Cashew Development Corporation. And after some time, Cashew Development Corporation could not make profits, and they wanted to give it to private sector. So it is land reforms in reverse. Tribal land is being given to private sector. Now, similarly, if you look at another example, this I myself saw in some villages of Kalahandi, women had been prosecuted for keeping brooms in their houses. In Kalahandi, brooms, at that point of time in 95, hill brooms could be collected, but it could not be sold, it could not be stored, it could not be processed. All these activities which would have improved women's access to women's livelihoods, they were all banned. And in fact, I kept on writing to Chief Secretary and others, nothing happened. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that government policies themselves are responsible for harming tribals in one way or the other, especially in forest areas. Now, if you look at this, the FRA has 3 committees, and these all committees are headed by non-foresters. How is it that in actual practice, despite the fact that Collector, SDM, and Gram Sabha, they're all, and Forest Department is not concerned, is not member of any of these committees, how is it that we are able to not achieve good results? There could be many reasons for this, but I think we need more studies which will show as to what is happening. I have, in fact, private sector and consulting organizations and academic organizations have done some studies, and those studies show a very dismal picture. In Madhya Pradesh, it says that titles for MFP collections have been given in the name of one Suraksha Samiti, not in the name of Gram Sabha. Most titles mention only Nistar rights and rights to NTFP and not 3I. Now, mind you, friends, although we are claiming that 4.6 million hectares is covered under CFR, one doesn't know how much is under 3I. 3 section of FRA, which says that Gram Sabha and forest dwellers have a right to process, regenerate, conserve, and manage forest areas. But how much area is actually under 3I? At least I have not seen those figures, and those could be very, very low. Similarly, interpretation of various sections of the FRA needs to be clarified. FRA, Section 5 of the FRA says that Gram Sabha and forest dwellers who have rights, they have a right to manage, and they have been authorized to do many things. But actually, Section 5 of FRA, does it apply only to 4.6 million hectares, which is under CFR? Does it apply to only which is under 3I? Does it apply to the entire forest area? That clarification has still not been done. So therefore, it's a question of interpretation. I think the Tribal Development Ministry, in addition, in consultation with Forest Ministry, must clarify that Section 5 would apply at least to all the CFR, which is 46 million hectares, and not just to 4.6 million hectares, which is under CFR. So the interpretation of Section 5 of FRA and Rule 4 of rules, etc., needs to be clarified. But the most important point, which I would say, is that in addition to the implementation of CFR, we must find out why the Anna forest product production is not increasing. Apart from Tendu Patta, at least where production is maybe improving, but the production of other minor forest products which are gathered by tribals and on which their livelihood depends, that production, the overall quantum perhaps is not increasing, but again, figures are not there, one doesn't know. We need to find out how to improve production, because ultimately the livelihoods of tribals will improve only when overall production improves. That would require some kind of a silvicultural changes in the pattern of planting. Then planting species like teak or monocultures, we need many species of many ages in the same area, which will improve biodiversity, which will also bind soil, and it will also improve the access of tribals. So therefore, as which are the species which give minor forest products and how to improve their production, that is the main issue. And not only that, we also need to see how to improve their access. Access is unfortunately controlled by various transit permits and various laws, etc. Even today, you find that tribals cannot, for instance, to give an example, in Tamil Nadu, Adivasis are involved in the marketing of Prosopis duliflora, which is a weed, to charcoal. But that cannot be done because it requires a transit permit. I recall in Gujarat, sometime in 2001, when the chief minister had come to the planning commission, converting Prosopis duliflora into charcoal, you require 3 permissions. You cannot transport Prosopis without permission. You cannot convert that into charcoal, and then charcoal also cannot be marketed. So 2 of these, but still transit permit is still being controlled by Forest Department. Now, as you know, the section 4 clearly says that transit permit will be given by by Gram Sabha, but in actual practice, it is not happening. And the transit permit, in a way, is a very big tool in the hands of Forest Department to harass and to control travel. So therefore, we need to find out which are how to make silvicultural changes which will improve travelers' access to minor forest products, move all these restrictions. Now, even Tendupatta and many other nationalized MFPs can be sold only to government. Now, farmers are free to sell their produce to anyone they like, but they prefer to sell it to government because government offers a higher price. Similar situation, similar arrangement should be made for minor forest products also. The gatherers should be free to sell it in the open market, but there should be arrangement by the tribal development cooperatives, PDCC or other such organizations, which will offer a better price. But that is not happening, and I find that a very large number of products like sal seeds, etc., are nationalized, which means they can be organizations. So therefore, that's another very big change which is needed. So what I'm trying to say is that we need more advocacy, we need more changes. We find that there are studies to show. I recall a study done by Sharad Lele, which says that the Gram Sabhas are not aware whether the rights have been given to them under CFR or not. Even in that they have the right, but those rights do not mention their actual control. And often they feel that they can only collect, but the management right is still not being given to them. The district in Maharashtra shows that CFR title claim was submitted by the Sarpanch and no Gram Sabha was held. Titles to Gram Panchayat and not to Gram Sabha. And conditions were attached. Conditions attached that you have to only do this plantation and you have to you cannot market it freely, etc. So what I'm trying to say is that these are we require paradigm shift in our approach. We need to be more advocacy oriented. We need to, we have a number of organizations, academic organizations. They should do more studies, find out why progress in Jharkhand is so poor and what needs to be done. Why, in fact, if you look at the non-tribal forest areas like in Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh, nothing has happened. The figures are so and Uttarakhand, and that is when, at some point of time, I used to listen to Jairam Ramesh, he was the minister, because these are your own states ruled by Congress party, and still you find that Himachal and Uttarakhand are far behind. So therefore, friends, let us on a paradigm shift. Otherwise, what I feel is that even 10 years from now, we will still be hovering around the same figures and nothing much will change. So how to improve not only travelers' access to forest projects, how to ensure that their capacity improves, finds that the Gram Sabhas either are not willing to take responsibility for management or their capability is also very poor. So we need to both, once we start increasing the production of forest products, their interests will improve and they would also start taking more interest. So friends, what I'm trying to say, I may have sounded very critical, but I do feel that we need to really focus on improving livelihoods through more production of forest products, silvicultural changes, and also by improving their access, reducing controls, and help them in marketing, just as and free market plus, of course, minimum support price, etc. That's very important. Minimum support price, which is being offered by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, often one finds that the total amount which is being allocated is not enough. It is not spent, and there are no subsidies in food. As you know, in food, there is subsidy of lakh crores, but I do not know whether there is any subsidy. There is any subsidy as regards the minimum support price which is given to forest products. So there are many such areas which I think I've written in my paper also, which need to be focused, and we really need to shift from just implementation to advocacy. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I really hope that this workshop will consider these issues seriously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for the valuable insights. I'm sure the pertinent points which you have raised will be discussed upon during the course of the 2 days consultation, and surely some strategic directions may come out of this 2 days discussion. Now moving on, sir, I will request Dr. Muni Raju, sir, our guest of honor, to kindly deliver his inaugural address. Sir, please.
It is really, I'm honored to be as a guest of honor for this August gathering and national consultation on Forest Rights Act. Well, we know that as Niti Aayog is here today to understand more rather than what is actually happening on the ground. Of course, we have several data on displacements. Tribals were displaced for many reasons. According to Walter Fernandez, between about 60 to 65 million people are estimated to have been displaced between 1947 till 2000, because till 2000 there are several laws have been enacted by the forest, by and also the various development projects. Out of all that displaced people, over 40% were tribals, and another 40% were Dalits or other marginal groups, and rest may be like poor people from the other marginal groups. Of all the displaced, only 1/4 like 25% have been resettled, while the remaining were given some cash compensation or some kind of land allotments, some smaller rehabilitation aspects. And we see that there are between 1951 to 1990, around 21.3 million persons were development projects in 7 major states. Within this, 8.54 million, about 40% again, for the tribals and indigenous people. Only 2.12 million, about 24.8%, were resettled by the government of India through its various development activities in about 458 rehabilitation programs. And Fernandez and Paranjay also estimated that total 213 lakhs people were displaced due to development projects in the post-independence India. And in this, 25.5 lakh mining activities and 12.5 lakh industries, 164 lakhs large and medium dams, and about 6 lakh wildlife and conservation procedures, and 5 lakhs other projects. This was the study done by Monty during 2005. And based on a study, about 110 projects where Fernandez has concluded that out of the 16.94 lakh people were displaced owing to these projects. Almost like 50% were tribals, highlighting the increase in proportion of tribals among the displaced population over the years. So there is another report which claims that last 50 years, the 3,300 big dams have been constructed in India, many of which have led to large-scale eviction of vulnerable groups, that to tribals that constitute about 40 to 50% of the population. This was responded in the Parliament question in the Lok Sabha question in 2013. Together with about 53.9 lakh displaced by medium dams, a total of 164 lakh people have been displaced by all dams during the period of 1951 to 1990s. So, moving to the construction of Sardar Sarovar Dam, according to the official estimates, 42,000 families were displaced, but there are certain claims by the civil society organizations. It's more than 85,000 families, counting to the about 5 lakh people. And similarly, Narmada Valley Development Project has resulted in 25 million project affected people who are in the valley. The Teri project was a multi-purpose irrigation and power project in the Ganges Valley of Uttarakhand, which so similarly, there are various development projects which really displaced people due to mining, due to power, due to irrigation projects, and of course, dam constructions and all. Coming to the industrialization part, large-scale industrialization has displaced the tribal population. Well, of course, Niti Aayog's India at 71st strategy document has clearly laid down what needs to be done for addressing the development projects and how we can come up with a proper, effective, and tangible rehabilitation and resettlement project policies. So, one suggestion which has come is to put in a place a mechanism to regularly monitor the implementation of legislations like Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act and Forest Right Act. Unfortunately, many of the states, we have weak governance structure, weak institutional mechanism that is resulting in so many issues where Dr. Saxena Saab has clearly highlighted. Well, Ministry of Tribal Affairs is monitoring the progress, but ultimately the performance in the states, specifically the departments dealing with the tribal welfare and the revenue departments, they have a major role to play in in rehabilitation and resettlement of the tribal population. We come across and we strengthen that. Whenever we strengthen, then only we can see the ultimate outcome of proper rehabilitation can be done for the tribal population. I really appreciate the initiative taken by the Professor Votasab and also the Tribal Welfare Department in the government of Tamil Nadu. And I also congratulate the UNDP team, which are closely working with the Orissa government and also with us. I feel again, the states have the more responsibilities to implement and see that their tribal population is being provided proper rehabilitation and resettlements by building the convergence. Lacuna is the building convergence between the forest, revenue, and the tribal welfare departments. These three departments, if they work together hand in hand, we can see that the tribals get their rights properly and they settle properly, and we can bring them into the mainstream of the society. Leaving no one behind is the objective of the Sustainable Development Goals. And today, Honorable Prime Minister always quotes that Sabka Saath, Sabka Prayas, Sabka Vikas. Then only we can achieve the overall progress of the country. And our Honorable Prime Minister's objective is to achieve 5 trillion economy. Everyone needs to contribute closely and effectively and efficiently. Then only country can progress. So with this conclusion, I thanks once again for giving me this opportunity. I'm really honored again as a guest of honor for this national consultation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we are really honored to have you for both the days of the consultation. And before we close the inaugural session, I would request Madam Poonam Guha, Director ST, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
I take this opportunity to thank Ranjana Chopra, ma'am, Principal Secretary of the department, for her esteemed presence and guidance towards the overall making of FRA in the state, and especially for having led us towards this FRA conclave today. As mentioned by her, it is my proud privilege to mention the steps that have been taken by the government of Odisha towards concretizing FRA movement here, especially with respect to the individual forest rights that we have all seen. We have been able to give 4.5 lakh titles to our people, and of course, small but steady, the giving of titles in the community rights and the CFR movement also continues. Whether it is digitization of technology or it is the human resources towards the making of the FRS cells, we have tried to put our best foot forward in giving forest rights to our tribal communities and to OTFDs also. The conversion of forest villages to revenue villages, ROR correction, the use of digital technology, all have sure, but of course with small steps been taken towards this very important edifice. Therefore, I would also like to mention here that with the support of SC/ST RTI, we have also made some small forays into the realm of habitat rights, and which is perhaps the first time in the country. Therefore, I acknowledge the presence and the guidance that has been given to us by Principal Secretary Ranjana Chopra ma'am, and we as would really like to take the FRA journey forward. Thank you. I thank Dr. Muni Raju sir, Deputy Advisor, Niti Aayog, for his esteemed presence here. Sir, thank you for having come all the way. and it was so nice to hear from you about the kind of journey that sir would also like Odisha to make, especially in this very important roadmap. And once again, I thank you, sir, for having really spared your valuable time for all of us here. Thank you. I thank Dr. N.C. Saxena, sir, for his gracious presence and his vision setting, and also for the valuable time that he has put for all of us. The points that sir has put before us are indeed something that we will be working on towards taking the FRA journey forward, especially the ones that sir has mentioned regarding minor forest produce, regarding the strengthening of the Gram Sabha, and regarding the marketing of MFP and the livelihoods that can be generated from this towards the tribal FRA holders. Thank you, sir, for your esteemed presence, and your words of wisdom would definitely help us propel this particular important journey in the state of Odisha. Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity also to thank Shri Dennis Curry, our esteemed dignitary from UNDP, for his collaborative effort towards taking our FRA journey forward. I also wish to thank our UNDP friends sitting here, and we also have our officers from UNDP who have been helping us every day in setting the context in which we really want the FRA movement to go, whether it is individual forest rights, whether it is collection of land records, whether it is digitization, and of course the website that was being mentioned. UNDP has actually helped us to really take this movement to a next level, and with their support, and of course with the support of all stakeholders, we will definitely do even better. So thank you, Mr. Curry, and all the UNDP friends also seated here for your esteemed support. I would like to thank Manoj Bapna, sir, from Ministry of Tribal Affairs, for that extremely lucid presentation that he has shared with us. The points sir has made on 41E is something that all of us need to really look at, and because we are in an era of convergence, so convergence with the forest department as well as with the Panchayati Raj department and all other stakeholder departments through the level of 41E and the strengthening of the Gram Sabha will definitely be a very important mission for all of us. So thank you, Manoj Bapna, sir, for your extreme presence here, and also for that very nice presentation before us. Thank you, sir. Of course, I would fail in my duty if I do not really acknowledge, though I do it every time, and it is my duty to thank Dr. Ota for being our friend, philosopher, and guide, not only in the field of FRA, but in any movement in the field of tribal development, whether it is livelihoods, whether it is culture, whether it is education. It is sir who has been actually guiding us and propelling us towards the tribal advocacy movement here in the state of Odisha. And I thank him also in particular for putting together this 2-day conclave and bringing together people of great repute from across the country and the globe for making this two-day conclave reality. He, along with his team, deserve a very special mention. Thank you, sir. It's the presence of all civil society organizations, policy planners, policy makers, researchers, officers, and Panchayati Raj representatives, and I urge everybody to come forward to enable forest rights to be at the center of livelihoods for our tribes. So with this, I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, madam. Now the tea is served outside. We will break for tea, but I would request the house to reassemble after 10 minutes so that we can start the technical session one. Thank you.